It's always funny to me when it's like, you are now live. It's like, yeah, I'm always live. I'm alive. Anyway, it's Sunday Fun Day at the Krause house, so we have family over and I need to head out to the pool in a second. But I wanted to drop another video to talk to you guys. I'm doing the YouTube, Instagram thing again, so I will be looking in both places at the same time. Hello to everyone who's joining. Thanks so much for watching. Of course, a couple days ago, we heard about the unfortunate death of Representative John Lewis of Georgia. And obviously, he was a Democrat, a longtime Democrat from the Deep South, and a historic civil rights icon. And it kind of triggered some conversations in our house. And of course, when you read the obituaries of him, whether it's from National Review or the Washington Examiner to the left side of the aisle, like Slate or the New York Times, you read a pretty in-depth history of his life and his experiences, horrific experiences in the way that he was mistreated and abused and justice was not served throughout his life. And that's what he fought against in a lot of ways. And then, of course, I read, his legislative things that he authored and co-authored and things that he stood for that I obviously don't agree with, but that doesn't mean that I can't be respectful of him and the life that he lived and appreciative of such a huge role that he played during the civil rights movement. And then of course I go to social media where I see that no, if you are Paul Ryan or Senator Tim Scott or Mitt Romney or anybody that's ever voted or worked under the Trump administration, we're allegedly not allowed to have an opinion on the greatness that was Congressman Lewis. And I think that this is a growing problem and a growing frustration for me in our country, especially in raising our girls. So I can have a conversation with our children about the good, the bad, and the ugly of people and humankind and difficulties and decisions that we'll make, and how we even in our own lives have friends that we might disagree with politically or religiously, but that doesn't mean that we're hateful and mean and rude towards them. And I would hope that one day when I die, if a friend that's a leftist that my kids might disagree with, I don't know, maybe one of my kids will end up being a liberal, I sure hope not, that they're not going to be like, oh, so-and-so, you need to sit down and shut up because you didn't agree with absolutely every single thing that our mother agreed with politically or in her faith or in marriage or, hey, even like food, right? Like we have friends that have different food tastes. I know that that seems like a very minuscule thing, but I feel as if there's this resounding sit down and shut up mentality that's happening a lot right now in politics and in conversations specifically around race and even Corona. Like Corona's gotten like political now. Whether or not you are for or against wearing masks, like it's a political thing. Opening or keeping schools closed, it's a political thing. Returning people back to work, it's a political thing. And I just think that it's sad to me that when you see somebody like Congressman Lewis, who did so much and sacrificed so much and lived his life doing what he thought he needed to do for his fellow Americans and for his country. And if Paul Ryan recognizes that or Tim Allen recognizes that, they're told to shut up. Like, it's really frustrating. And I think that it also leads me to just point out, I think, to our girls when we have discussions about people in politics or people that are very a part of the principles and the founding of where we are today in our country, that no one is perfect and we're not going to agree with somebody 100% of the time. And this is something that as a parent we have to talk about all the time. Emily Zanotti and Bethany Mandel recently did a great episode of Lady Brains, I think it aired last week, where they talked about educating our children and educating our society about the importance of American history and where we have come from and how far we've come and how we recognize our wrongs and we attempt to change them. And that if you are a person of faith, Bethany pointed this out, and she read a quote from somebody, I can't remember who it was now off the top of my head, but he kind of pointed out that, like, actually when you're raised in a faith like Judaism or Christianity, you look at biblical characters like a King David, for example, or other people, and you recognize that no one is perfect. As a Christian, you look at Peter and how he denied Christ, and you're like, wow, he was so close to Jesus, and yet he denied him. No one is perfect. And I recently had a moment where I kind of was reminded of that and how we're going to be able to or have to address that with our children as time goes on when we were watching Hamilton. That came out, of course, over the 4th of July weekend on Disney+. The girls have been listening to the music a lot. They love it. And it reached the second half where he has the affair. and the Reynolds affair. And our niece and our oldest are old enough to know, like, that's wrong. And it's interesting because I've never had a conversation with them that's like, oh, you know, if I cheated on daddy, it's wrong, or if daddy cheats on me, it's wrong. They just, based on how we raise them, and I think based on their age of awareness now, like, that's wrong. He's married. He shouldn't be doing that. Kind of PG-13 material for them, but they were enough that they were able to understand it. And then we had conversations. It actually took us like 3 nights to watch Hamilton because it's 3 hours long, and we try not to watch that much TV, so we were limiting it to an hour a night. And it led to a conversation of, well, why did he do that? And how come? And did that make him a bad guy? Because they're at the age too that they think that you are either a good guy or a bad guy. And so it led to a broader conversation that we had to have with them of, not everyone is good and not everyone is bad. Like, yes, there are bad guys, and it's daddy's and my job to protect you from those bad guys. But sometimes people like Alexander Hamilton did incredible good things. And he also did really bad things, really crappy things. I use that word, or sometimes I say sucky around them because I try not to use other words around them. And I hope that one day when they're old enough and they read about Frederick Douglass and, you know, even Donald Trump, not that he's up there with Frederick Douglass, or other people in history, that they see honestly, even how the United States handled World War II and how we dragged our feet on getting involved and saving our fellow brethren around the world from the atrocities of, you know, Nazism, which can be another conversation for another day. But like, there will be very complex conversations that we have to have with our children about how we can look at somebody like Nelson Mandela and see how he legitimately was different at the beginning of his life versus the end of his life. We can look at somebody like a John Lewis that was the cornerstone of the civil rights movement in the United States, but how mommy might disagree with him on abortion and other issues that I think are a part of civil rights. But I can still respect what he did do that was good. We can look at Alexander Hamilton or Thomas Jefferson and recognize the good, the bad, and the ugly of what they did for our nation and our founding and our freedoms that we have today, and in the context of history. And I think that just needs to be, it's a lesson for me that I'm consistently having to remind myself at 34, that just because a person has an R after their name, just because someone espouses to be an evangelical Christian, doesn't mean that they are a perfect person. And I shouldn't expect them to be. And I shouldn't be putting those people on a pedestal that whatever they say is the best thing, or whatever they do is going to be the best thing. And I have to be like, hoorah team, and only support what they say and not even consider what the other guy is saying. I challenge myself, and I would challenge all of you, to check out both sides, to befriend both sides, to have conversations and relationship and community and fellowship with people that you may or may not disagree with on everything. And we're gonna make mistakes. Everyone's gonna make mistakes. But when someone dies is not the time to tell the other person on the other side of the aisle, like, sit down, shut up, you don't get a say in the life that they lived because you didn't agree with every single aspect of the life that they chose to live. So that's my Sunday thoughts. I'm going to go and put on my swimsuit because it's hot, and I hope you guys have some time with family and friends and hang in there and let me know your thoughts, because I love it when you comment, and then I can comment back and we can have an ongoing conversation. And anyway, have a good week. I'll see you soon.